Hey, Nick.
Hey, what?
Are you ready?
For what?
To Serp.
Serp what?
Serpico. My hands are high, my feet are low, and this is how I Serpico.
His hands are high, his feet are low, and this is how he Serpico.
Again, with more enthusiasm. Do it.
No.
All right.
Serpico.
Yours was bad to start.
Serpico. 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 This is SOS Cinema. I'm Andrew Seelig. And today we're discussing 1973's Serpico, starring Al Pacino. How do you guys like that little intro song?
Let's just not talk about it.
Yeah. Shout out our friend Matt Riccardi for showing me Popsico. Credit to them. Great music. You want to look them up? So Serpico, 1973, based on a true story about the corruption of the New York City Police Department.
Should we introduce ourselves first?
Oh yeah, I'm Andrew Seelig.
I'm Nicholas Visconti.
I'm Steve.
Yeah. So this movie though, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
It was very deep.
It was a lot of stuff going on.
Classic 2-hour 70s movie.
Yeah. Crazy for it being a 70s movie too. I mean, you definitely get that feel with the camera effects and stuff, but that was pretty solid.
Yeah, kind of weird seeing Al Pacino play like a different kind of character, a good guy.
Yeah.
This movie definitely gave me a lot of respect for his acting talents, because I've seen him in Scarface and Godfather and some other movies, and he's always the hard mob guy, and this one he's a good soft guy.
Right.
Yeah, he was a bit of a softie.
Even his voice was weird.
Do you think this was also a preempt to him turning into Tony Montana? And this is how he got his start. And then after the police force, he goes down to Cuba.
Maybe. Following Dustin Hoffman's journey. So he starts off as the guy from The Graduate.
Right. He's just post-grad. He's like, fuck it. I'm not going to go into any job. I'm going to join the police force.
Yeah, he finally decides to move to New York City.
Yeah, he marries Mrs. Robinson's daughter.
But then they clearly have a falling out.
So he moves to New York, trying to make it as a police officer.
It was destined to fail. We all knew it.
Fair.
Saw it from the start.
He didn't like his job as a police officer because they were kind of mean to him a little bit. We'll get into that later.
Right. And then from there, he was like, fuck the police force. I'm going down to Cuba, starting a drug ring. We're making money.
And before that, though, he takes over his father's business as the mob boss of the Corleone family.
And then, in his twilight years, he moves back to America and rejoins the capitalist society as he forms a partnership with Dunkin' Donuts, with the Dunkachino.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it all comes full circle.
Yeah.
Al Pacino runs the movie world.
Good for him. But, so pretty much he gets the job in the police office, as a police officer, gets to get through the academy.
Right.
Starts off nice, cleanly shaven.
Wait, yeah. Can we... Let's talk about the start of this movie real quick. It starts with him getting shot, or you don't see him shot in the face, but they're bringing him to the hospital in the back of the cruiser, and they're like, we got a police officer been shot. And then they're like, oh, I bet it was a cop that shot him, and you're like, oh, what's gonna happen in this movie? And then it goes right to the academy thing, where he's getting
He's getting sworn in, right?
Sworn in. And he has a scar right under his face, so I was like, I thought it was, at first I thought it was not chronological, but then I was like, oh, maybe it is, and he had to shave. I
noticed the scar.
And now he has the scar.
Might be an error in post or something.
I don't know, but clearly we find out that the very opening was at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that was a nice hook for the story, honestly.
Yeah. Pulls you in, you're like, what the frick?
Absolutely. It was a cold, rainy night.
Yeah, also crazy too, I found this out at the very end when the credits were rolling, but based on a true story. So,
yeah, I didn't know
as we get through this, pretty nutty
too.
that this happened in real life.
So, after watching the movie, I was thinking about previous scenes. And what do you guys think about when they went to that lunch place and they're like, oh, I heard they asked, do you want something, some kind of
It was like a chicken something.
Oh, he asked for a roast beef sandwich.
Yeah, the guy was serving something else and he asked for a roast beef sandwich, and the guy got all upset at him and gave him all the fat from the roast beef.
Right.
On untoasted white bread.
And at first I was like, maybe that's just him being, it's all the cops eat for free. But how do you think that maybe they had this place give him food for free because they kind of ran it, they mobbed it up a little bit?
I think 100%.
You think so?
I think it was protection that goes both ways type deal. Maybe.
You think they forced him to give him food?
The cop was like, you just take what Jimmy gives you.
Yeah.
Which is almost like he was taking this submissive role as a police officer right from the start. They're kind of run by the people that they were supposedly like on good terms.
And they had a system that worked.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't pick up till at the end of the movie. And I thought about other scenes, but
Yeah, same.
interesting. I was wondering what that was because
I didn't really think about that until you just said it.
yeah.
Yeah, so the movie after the academy opens up with a pretty gruesome scene.
Mm-hmm.
His first call on the job.
Which is interesting too, because the person that he's partnered up with is like, forget about it. And he's like, nah, we're going for this call. So he jumps into the fire hot, and they come up on a group of guys who are taking advantage of a woman.
Yes.
That whole scene was absurd because he pulls the gun on them, or they both pull the gun on these men. And the men hold a knife to that woman, and I don't know, I was like a cop in that situation. That must be so daunting.
For sure.
Holy shit, someone's life is in my hands right now.
Yeah, when that happened and he kind of just stares them down and they're like put the guns down. I was like, damn, is Serpico like a bitch? Is that what his character is?
Right.
Like he just doesn't, like he's just gonna let this happen. But then obviously they put the woman down and they all run for it, and he gets to that one guy.
And also you get to see a little bit into his personality as a person and his good nature. So even though he takes this man to custody who was raping this woman, it was only one out of the group. And I'm not sure, but I think this was one of the dudes that was just standing in the background.
I think they're all
He says to him when he caught him that, like his pants weren't down.
Right.
So like that looks not as bad, I guess.
I think they might have been playing a little bit good cop, bad cop in a way where the other guy beat him up.
Gotcha.
Kind of unintentionally, but I don't think
it would have been good playing.
I don't think that guy was as innocent as Al Pacino's character was making him sound, but
Right.
I think he was trying to, warm him up to give away his other guys.
Right.
And that shows corruption in the police force, because that's the first sign, I think, is that, obviously the guy, I don't think you're supposed to beat up people when you're interrogating them by any means, and he does that brutally.
Mm-hmm. With the phone book. I wonder if that's where the phone book thing comes in, because how people
Well, yeah, that's like a real
notoriously in
thing.
movies and just in general beat people with a phone book.
Yeah, because it's hard to well, I mean, clearly his face got fucked up, but the phone book to the stomach doesn't, no one's gonna see that.
Exactly.
I will say, the kick to the nuts, police shouldn't be doing that, but you may deserve that if you're trying to rape someone.
Yeah,
you definitely deserve
100%.
that.
And then also, he makes the arrest. He goes out on a limb, this guy, Serpico, to make that arrest. He goes out of his precinct.
Takes off his uniform.
And he just goes up to them in the park and just, shows up, pulls a gun on them and just under arrest. And, and they don't give him any credit. They give him a assist on an arrest, but they don't actually give him the arrest.
Which is already, again, showing the corruption that's there. Because
he's
they
a
say
new
to
guy.
him, they're like, you're not even in your jurisdiction. We can turn this back on you, and you can actually
threaten
control
him
it.
instead of
Could be a whole lot of
reward him.
paperwork.
Yeah.
It's really just unfair for him. And
All right, so if we can touch on that point, the first time he's in street clothes, obviously you have detectives and undercover agents back then for the police force. But I was kind of confused. Was wearing disguises or going in plain clothes as a detective or undercover cop, was that just not a thing back then? Because I don't know why he was this first individual to start this trend of wearing disguises,
I think it was a thing. Because I saw somewhere that he was part of the plain clothes unit, and it was in capital letters.
Yeah.
But they started that because of him. Because if you remember a little bit further on, he goes to some higher up, and the higher up goes, how would you like to not have to wear the uniform? You could keep wearing your same clothes and running your operation the way you are.
Yeah.
So they kind of build it around him, it seems like.
I think there was always the plain clothes thing.
Okay.
Then always undercover, but he was saying these undercover guys you got walk around with black shoes and white socks on. They don't understand the streets and how to fit in and actually get information.
Okay.
They're just kind of out here in suits oh, I'm not a cop.
Right.
But he's I understand.
So it's kind of interesting too to that point, and they don't give too much backstory on Frank Serpico, but I wonder if he was before joining the police force, if he grew up in the city life, like around criminals a lot, because for him to point out the fact that the other undercover agents kind of dress like, how would you say, like professionals?
Yeah.
Still, when they're supposed
Stiffs.
to be. Yeah, stiffs, if you will. It's interesting that he notes on that because he's going through the same process as the rest of these cops.
They do show early on in the movie where he's kind of like in his neighborhood of New York City. And like everybody around him like knows him and loves him and like says hi to him.
Right. Was that with the fire hydrant?
Yeah. The kid,
I love that
kids
scene.
like
So
are spraying it at him, and he's like, "You want me to run through it?" Okay.
That was awesome. It shows also the innocence of that small neighborhood lifestyle back then, where everyone was kind of buddy with each other. Like he goes around, he like passes that kid on the head. He's like walking down, talks to the.
But to your point of the. I wonder if he was in the crime or not like in the crime, but around it. I will say, I bet he was definitely part of like the counterculture.
Okay, yeah.
When he was a kid.
For sure, and the way he dresses.
I was making a point. Do you think that Serpico was, kind of going off what you just said, but do you think Serpico was dressing up like a hippie kind of thing as his own personality, or do you think he was really like dedicated to his job as a cop and wanted to be the undercover guy who was... Maybe a little bit of both, because he started out with a clean shaven face as he got into the police force.
Yeah,
he grew out into like the whole hippie thing, started wearing earrings and rings and everything.
That's a good question.
Interesting too, because we're kind of jumping around a bit, but where they comment on his mustache, the higher up person comment, I don't know what his name was, but comments on his mustache.
What did he say? It was funny.
It's like, I don't know, like professional men, or I don't know if they was trying to make the connotation of.
I think he was trying to refer to him as like a gay person.
Yeah, was it like
obviously
like straight men don't have
wasn't very accepting.
mustaches?
I think so.
That's interesting. So I didn't make that connection there. I didn't know if that was what that was. It's just interesting how facial hair could be.
And he was definitely an outlier in the whole police station. Like he did ballet with his girlfriend.
Yeah,
right.
And he was reading books, and they were in that.
He was just educated.
Yeah, I mean, he was just like, living his own life, which is kind of unique. Everyone else was, cutthroat police officer, and he was just his own man, which is interesting.
Yeah, pretty neat. And then also seeing right at the start where he's inducted into the police force is really interesting to see. I think one of the other officers goes to him and says, "I've never seen a Guinea officer before," or something derogatory towards Italian people.
Yeah.
And I know that that's something that's happened in the past, but seeing it on screen is like the first time I've ever seen the depiction of Italian prejudice portrayed before.
Even still there in the 70s.
Right.
I know, like in the 1800s when Italians started coming.
Yeah.
That like the Italians and Irish, like everybody hated them.
Right. Which is really neat to see.
It's weird how like the Irish and the British themselves hate each other. Like it's always starts off with people just hating each other and then they get together. But it's weird how like Irish people and English people, because they're literally like right next to each other, the same people.
Right? Yeah, well,
I couldn't tell them apart.
I think that's from the English trying to conquer the Irish a lot.
Yeah, but there's a reason why, because they probably thought they were...
Probably. But it's just either way. I thought it was funny after the academy and he gets sworn in, like, it was such like a stereotypical Italian family moment where like everyone, like all the cousins and aunts and grandmothers are there and they're all just like, oh.
It's pretty cool to see Al Pacino's character speaking Italian too with his mom, I think.
Yeah, his grandmother doesn't even speak English.
Which is pretty awesome.
It's cool they don't have subtitles either.
Yeah.
Because they try to make it more authentic. Like, you don't really know what they're saying. Also, you gotta like read the subtext of the whole thing.
It was pretty cool too. Definitely not fluent myself in Italian, but just because my dad is and my grandmother is on his side. Huh?
I didn't know your dad is.
Oh yeah, my dad grew up with that whole background. His grandparents didn't speak any English.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I could pick up some of the words, but obviously didn't know a lot of what they were saying on screen there. But it was pretty cool just to be able to pick up some of that stuff. They kept it pretty authentic, I want to say. I think that's a good use of that word.
I'm looking up now which neighborhood in New York City is like the like traditional like Italian neighborhood. Because at the end of the movie, it does say that the whole film was filmed in New York City.
Okay.
So, wait.
And was it the Bronx area?
Oh, it must have been the Bronx, but
started out in
Little Italy.
I think Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, that's what it was. And I've heard of Little Italy. It's definitely a thing.
He must have been from Brooklyn or the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is Brooklyn because that's where he wanted to be. He wanted to be in Brooklyn Narcotics.
Yep, exactly. Also,
He just
I don't
wanted his
know-
gold shield, man.